real estate's been one of those industries that didn't ever really stop. That's the first question I have for you. Did the real estate market ever really stop? Did you stop showing, stop listings?
Yeah, obviously, well, not obviously, but the real estate market really did not slow down. It changed. Obviously, everything changed with the new COVID-19. Everyone's lives were flipped upside down. But in the real estate industry as a whole, we took the bull by the horns, really. We adapted quickly with the help of our clientele, the sellers, the buyers, lenders, title companies, home inspectors, all these people that are involved in coming into homes and touching everything that you consider yours during this pandemic. But yeah, we kept and are keeping the pedal to the floor. So right now, really what we're seeing is that rightfully so, the market has always been slim on listings, which would be homes that are available for people. And that dropped a little bit for the pandemic. The good thing is unlike 2008, the buyers are still there. They're still waiting. So as I assume, as the economy opens up more and people will get back to what they would consider normal or the new normal, I anticipate the sellers that are waiting right now will hit the market and help let these buyers, pick and choose a little bit of better inventory. But still a great time to sell and buy. And I'm not just saying that. We've been 3 years going. I tell you that just between you and I, when we're out catching a cup of coffee, the market's been really good here for 3 years strong.
So you're saying there's not a lot of listings on the market. So there's not much inventory to go around at this present time.
And you're right. That's exactly what I'm saying. But that was the case prior to the pandemic. It's just changed a little bit. We're down maybe, I pulled some stats, obviously knowing that, going to be on the webinar, last year in March, we had 236 sold homes, and I'm just going by Mahoning County. This year we had 215. In April, we had 278, and this year we had 207. So we're not off. It's not, again, we're not off like 2008 with the real estate crash and the real estate bubble. This is more, in my eyes, something that's more fear-based. Not that it's not here. It's just not economically based like 2008.
So this was a shock to the system. And so what you're saying is that had there been no shock, this black swan event that happened as the global pandemic, by this time, would we have been pacing at an all-time record for real estate sales?
I believe so, yes. Only because now, again, the only thing that's changed is, everyone is understanding that you need to take precautions when you're heading into the grocery store, the pharmacy, places that are essential, let alone, saying, hey, I'd like to sell my home. And we usually wait for the selling season, which is right where we're at, the springtime going into summertime. And the pandemic came, the black swan, as you call it. And, so that requires people to come into your home. And so those people are just waiting. If it's not a necessity, they're just waiting for this to kind of go. But again, I could show you home after home. Doesn't matter if it's in Canfield, Youngstown, Mahoning County, Trumbull County, condos for elderly people, condos for people that are just starting out. Any price range, acreage, neighborhoods, they go on the market. I mean, we're talking hours, Jeff, that these homes are under contract with multiple offers. Still. Very odd, I guess, because what I'm used to was what happened in 2008, where one day the real estate world was open for business and the following day it was closed. And people lost a lot of money, and there was a lot of, probably one of the largest transfers of wealth that's ever taken place was then. But this is just much different. How? I'm not smart enough to tell you that. I'm not sure, but I'm glad it's been where it is. And like you said, you're seeing tremendous growth right now. I mean, you guys are a great news source, media source, and very respectable. And that's what happens. So, there's just a people are doing things differently, which I don't know that is all necessarily bad.
Right. So now tell me about the, so you're saying there's price point wise, there's no, if you had to break down, what are the price points you typically, the ranges of price points you work with in the market? And is there any differences or peculiarities between those price points as far as listings and sales momentum are concerned?
No, right now, as far as what those price brackets would be, everyone could classify them differently. The higher you go up in the price range, the higher the span. Some people may be $50,000 to $75,000. They may be $75,000 to $125,000. Then someone might go $150,000 to $250,000, $200,000 to $300,000. I bet you if there's any other realtor that's watching this, they're saying the same thing. I don't see any discrepancy or any change in any price range. That's what I was looking for when this was first starting out. To be honest with you, I thought maybe the condos might take a hit because the majority of people that are buying condos are elderly, and maybe they're slowing down and taking their precautions, but it just didn't happen. So, again, thrilled to death with the way that the real estate market hung on. And again, I don't think it's because necessarily people are losing their jobs long-term or indefinitely. I think there's more of a short-term play than anything else. I'm hoping by June or July that most of the people that are unemployed or maybe going back to work part-time will be full-time and back to somewhat of the regular game plan.
And so if you, say you're listing, right? Say you're in listing, is this a good time to put your home back on the market? Say you took a pause, say you had plans to list. Are the people that are listing, are they looking to simplify and streamline their lives? Or are they looking for more space? Is there any certain trend formulating there?
I think that the trend in the real estate market is really going more towards, instead of the 5 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms and 7,000 square feet, that homes are getting smaller by design and by choice. I do feel that it is a good time to put your home under the market because, again, right now inventory is low. And, we're a professional trade. I mean, we are really taking this serious. I haven't been let down by a single other agent that has shown any of my properties as far as wearing their protective masks and gloves and bringing sanitizer and understanding that, maybe showings aren't available every day, but perhaps maybe an evening during the week and, a good large open window on a Saturday or Sunday, because that way the seller can have their home sanitized after the showings. Or just do their due diligence after that. And so, again, we're making those changes. They were implemented very swift and quick, up from National Association of Realtors on down to where we're at right here at the local level with YCAR and Waybor, and just really everyone that's really took this by lead and
So walk me through. So there's 2 sides, right? There's always the seller and the buyer. If I'm a seller, what do I have to do to prepare to show my home? And you mentioned things like, masks, gloves. Do you have to sanitize after each showing? And then if I'm a buyer, could you also walk me through how a buyer can prepare to actually see a home? So
Yes.
Focus on the sellers first.
Yeah. So on the seller side, obviously what we try to recommend is, yes, let's make sure that, and again, things are being done differently, Jeff, but I'm not saying that that we shouldn't stay here, which would mean, hey, listen, we don't want every agent or buyers turning on and off light switches. So we're telling the sellers, listen, turn on every light that you can. That way no one needs to hit the switches. Open your closet doors so they don't have to touch the door handle. Leave these doors wide open. So really all the agent needs to do is show up prior to their client coming, which we do anyways. Pop the lockbox, open the door. So if you and Amy were coming to see a property, I'm meeting you and saying, hey, again, I've got my protective mask on, I've got my gloves on, and if we're going inside, we're going to wear booties. or we're going to take our shoes off outside.
Right.
I'm going to hold the door for you and Amy to come in and tell you, like, listen, if you want something opened, let me know. That way I'm the only one touching this. I know that I'm taking the appropriate measures with the gloves and knowing how to do that. And that way, when we leave, the same thing. You haven't touched anything in that house, which is good for you, just in case that the seller may have COVID-19 and be asymptomatic, you know what I mean? And not know. So, you know, it's just a matter of just taking the precautions and doing it differently. But I like it. I like the new change, to be honest with you.
So as a say I'm a buyer and I'm walking through a listing, looking at a potential house that I'm interested in, you're saying I could simply walk in, keep my hands in my pocket, keep my mask on my face, and almost just you're the tour guide.
Absolutely.
As you always, so this actually raises the quality of interactions, if I'm not mistaken, right? So instead of people just kind of wandering about, you know, finding the things or discovering the items of the house on their own, you're saying it's a very direct, interactive, almost like a guided tour, like you almost as if, you know, in Europe when the people with the red flags follow me, those tour guides, you know.
Yeah, like I said, you know, I think a lot of things are better now. You know, if you're going to the grocery store and they have your plastic shield up, and you just put your groceries at the top of the belt, and you don't touch anything until you touch your cart, and there's one way in and there's one way out, and your carts are cleaner now than they were before the pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. All these things are probably, a lot of things are probably more sanitized now than they were before the pandemic. And I'm not saying that shouldn't have been done.
Right.
Real estate is the same way. You know, really, if you're walking into 5, 6, 7 homes a day, whether it's the flu season or not, or the COVID-19, I mean, yeah, we should be prepared to understand that there's germs in every house, and we should limit our exposure to that. So the tours are a lot more guided as far as what you were talking about, Jeff. Yeah, if again, you and Amy are with me, you know, I'm opening the kitchen cabinets for you, letting you see what's there. If they're pull-out drawers, I'm going to pull them out so you could see them and point out the benefits of, you know, do we have an A cabinet or do we have a C cabinet? But yeah, essentially, you're walking through the house with your hands in your pocket, and I'm walking you through there. If you need something opened or closed, I'm going to do that for you. Right.
And you're finding only people that are more on the serious side or the qualified side are the ones that are actually, you know, walking through listings these days?
Finally, yes. Sometimes you could say that if there's 3 feet of snow out there and someone says, hey, I want to show your home, and the realtor calls you and says, this is probably a serious buyer. Not too many people are coming out in 3 feet of snow. Well, I could tell you and assure you that right now, the looky-loos are not out there.
Right.
Running down through the financing end too, you know, it would be, again, this is depending on how the seller and how the realtor set this up, but really nobody can do anything without a really good pre-approval. We're verifying, you know, where these jobs are, because some industries are more, have a better chance, unfortunately, of being still laid off at any given time, where other professions are more secure. And just taking those precautions, both for the seller, the buyer, and the realtors involved. So that has also, that part of the business has also gotten better.
Right. And so I guess the keys to, if you are interested, say you're a buyer interested in looking for a new home, the new things, I mean, the thing I've heard actually quite a bit is nothing's really different. It's just accelerated the pace of transformation. So things like pre-approval, walking in literally with everything done, right? So the pre-approval, how many people historically have done the pre-approval process for real estate, where they're literally
prior to seeing homes and prior to contacting a realtor, you mean?
Yeah, and you know, is that all only been once again for serious buyers? So
no, it doesn't necessarily make you a serious buyer. You know, you could walk around with that piece of paper and never buy something. But it goes into really that the realtor doing their due diligence with their buyer and having that buyer consultation and really narrowing in what someone is looking for. the Jeff Herman that calls me and says, hey, Chad, I want to see this house. I just drove by it. I have a pre-approval I'll bring with me, versus me saying, Jeff, or you saying, hey, Chad, I'd like to buy a property. I'd love to sit with you and kind of get a roadmap, a game plan of what's going to happen. What does it look like for me? What are the expectations that I have for you? I haven't gone to the bank yet. I'm probably going to sit down with you and say, this person's a little bit more serious because they really have put some thought on what is this going to look like? How is this going to happen? What do I need from the realtor? How do I need to go to the bank, Chad? Tell me what I need to do. You're the professional versus just happen to have a piece of paper. So again, it's case by case, Jeff, but the pre-approval, when you're submitting an offer, that's really when that makes sense.
Okay. So you would recommend almost, you prefer the pre-interview process. So like you said, someone could be driving down the street and say, oh, that looks interesting. I'm going to call Chad and see, that like you said, it's looky-loo. It's fleeting, where if you sit with someone and at any given time, there are probably a handful of listings that may match the criteria of the buyer, but you'll never really know until you spend the time. And, what's that process look like, and how much time does that take?
Well, that's going to change depending on who the buyer really is. It doesn't really matter of age or how many times they've bought a home, just a matter of what are they doing? How many questions can I ask, to really narrow in what you're looking for? Some people know what they're looking for. They don't want anything else. They're educated enough to know what they're doing.
Right.
And so that picture looks a little bit quicker versus somebody that says, I've never bought a house before. I'm a first-time home buyer. That doesn't mean they're young. It just means they've never bought a house before.
Right.
Or someone's, unfortunately their spouse maybe has passed away and they've always done it together, and this is new for them all by themselves. So, I mean, a buyer consultation can be just as different as any seller that you meet as well, too. It's just knowing, what arrows do you pull out of the quiver to make sure that you get this game plan and this roadmap that says, if Jeff and Amy want to buy a house in the next 30 days, we could make that happen. If they don't want to buy for another 6 months, we could make that happen too, and just start that process. So it's different for everybody, but like any industry, we have our general questions and that we need to get to figure out where we're going. But in a sense too, with this with the current conditions, the market in the lender world has really changed too. Guidelines for FHA have changed. Conventional guidelines have changed. It's harder now to get financing because of the current pandemic. And the reason why is simple. There's a lot of furlough programs out there. There's a lot of deferment programs. Don't pay for 3 months, don't pay for 6 months. You don't have to pay it back. You do have to pay it back. There's a lot of options out there, which are good for people. But somebody has to pay that mortgage anyways, meaning, the servicer, just so a lot of people understand what I'm talking about, is you have a mortgage with Chase Bank. Well, they still have to pay that note to Fannie, Freddie, Ginnie Mac, who are the big lenders, the government side of it all. Even if you take 6 months deferment, that payment is still being made to the government entities. And so Chase Bank is making your payments no matter whether you pay or not. And so now minimum credit scores have gone up. FHA is changing on a daily basis. It used to be if you had a 600 credit score in FHA, you were financeable. Now it's 640. It could be 620. Don't hold me to it. There's different guidelines out there. And conventional is doing the same as well. They're tightening their guidelines. Specifically in the conventional world right now, Jeff, nobody really knows what that looks like, but the risk is higher, and so those guidelines are changing. And I was on with a couple mortgage brokers before this webinar, and they just don't know what it looks like right now, but it is coming down the pipeline.
Hmm. And so what percent down? So what's that financing equation look like? Do you need to come in with not only pre-approval of the stability of your income stream, but then has that changed the dynamics around the percent you need down for financing, or the ratio of financing to cash?
No, no. FHA is still 3.5% down. Conventional, depending on who you're with, can be as minimal as 3%, 5%, 20%. Those numbers, ring a little bit more true to the public. No, so those have not necessarily changed. But that credit score is really what's important. Someone that has a 600 to 620, 630 credit score may not be able to get financed right now because of the guidelines raising their credit. So that's really the sticking point. But at the end of the day, good loans are good loans, because we don't want to end up back in 2008 either, where a lot of these loans were just made to people that weren't even real people. They were literally lending money to people that weren't real,
Right.
Lending money to people that were, no income, no doc loans, which means I could call the bank and say, hey, I make $650,000 a year. And in reality, I make $65,000. And it didn't matter if my credit was good enough, they were giving me the loan. So those types of things aren't happening. It's not like it's going back to the wild, wild west of 2008 and the years prior. But again, just taking note, taking some minor corrections into the market, but it's still a very strong market. It's a really good time to sell. But can we as realtors make that decision for the seller? They know honestly, it comes down to, how's your immune system? How healthy are you? And, how is this going to affect you? And those types of things. So we can't make that decision, obviously, for people. But in regards to the question of if the market's still good, it's still fantastic, really. It is.
Well, now, so it's good to know there's a good market, and that if you were to list today, your experience states that things are still moving fairly quickly. Something that's come up a lot, historically speaking, is this notion of staging. How not only do you have to prepare your home for showings, and everything has to be neat and tidy to a T, but how much imagination do some buyers have? Or say the people moved out, bought a condo, downsized, bought a condo, and they moved all the furniture out. Should you maintain some degree of furniture to give people a sense of the space and what fits in the space, or can you get away with showing an empty home?
I feel I've always said, and people are going to have a different opinion on this, Jeff, but I've always said that a furnished home is going to feel a little bit more like home than it will. God bless you.
Thank you.
Than it will an empty home. And some people might say an empty home shows bigger and better. So to each their own on that. I think staging really helps in rooms that are a little bit unconventional. If you're walking into a traditional 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2-story, I say that, you get a picture in your head, those don't need staged. Bedrooms are bedrooms. No matter how big they get, you could figure out where you're going to put your furniture. Mm-hmm. Sometimes staging helps more like in larger, great rooms, more open floor plans where you're not really sure where the dining room, eating, kitchen, great room, sitting room starts and ends. Then yes, furniture and staging can help. On a national level, they say staged homes sell faster and for more money. Then great. But at the end of the day, anytime you're in a seller's market, you can get away with some things. If people are saying, hey, in a buyer's market, the house has to be perfect. We have to make sure the paint is crisp and the carpet is clean and brand new and everything is great. Yes, but right now with the seller's market, you can really, truly, you could get away with some of those things.
So what you're saying, because inventory is low, anyone that is willing to sell at this point in time basically does have, I don't want to say the upper hand, but at least has a degree of advantage because
they have an upper hand. We could say it. It's good. We have an upper hand. It's, as far as looking at Youngstown and in the Mahoning Valley, I think it's great that there are more buyers looking to purchase real estate than we have sellers. That's a great problem to have. I hope that stays forever.
Right.
You know, it'd be like walking it, you know, it's like going into a restaurant, one of your favorite local restaurants, and there's a waiting line. You know the owner of that restaurant and you are pumped for them. Good.
Right.
You know, so I'm excited for that. And glad that yeah, I mean, they do have the upper hand, but at some point, it'll change, right? The buyers will have an upper hand at some point. You know, prices in this area really, even back in 2008, when everyone saw huge appreciation prior to the bubble, we didn't see huge appreciation here. But when the bubble burst and people were losing everything, we didn't have that decrease in value.
Right.
I tell people we're kind of like a savings account here. Put your money in and you pull your money out. Not huge appreciation, but listen, there's some good in that you're just in a stable market. You're in a 3 to 5 to 7% appreciation yearly or annually. That's good. Because if you see that you bought your home for $200,000 and now it's worth $500, you better be careful, because at some point it's going to be worth $100.
Right. Yeah, true.
It's chasing up high for some reason. So I like the stability here. But yeah, and what I mean by, you know, having maybe the upper hand, Jeff, is exactly what I was saying. You know, maybe they don't have to replace the carpet that's 10 years old. It's not that the carpet's dirty. It's just probably not going to appeal to the buyer today. But the buyer is just happy that they got a house and they'll be okay with replacing the carpet. So that's kind of where that little seller's market that's created helps out for them and for the realtor industry, because now we're not picking flooring. Because trust me, if we say, hey, Jeff, Amy, you got to replace the flooring, you're going to look at me and say, what kind do you want in there?
Yeah, right.
Right. What appeals to buyers? You know what I mean? What do you want me to put in there? So it really takes a lot of the pressure off of everybody around. So
now, have you seen any uptick, given all the economic development news, you know, say in Lordstown specifically, with Lordstown Motors, with LG Chem and General Motors getting together in their new joint venture? Are you seeing out of town buyers come into the picture at all, or is this still kind of a horse trading of the local community?
No, we're seeing some people that are coming into the area. You know, there's an uptick in that for sure. It's not a huge one, but again, anybody that's coming into the area that's outside of the area is that's good. That's positive news. You know, Lordstown is a really great community for the fact that, you know, when Lordstown shut down, you know, you could spread the word as asking the realtors like, hey, what happened the week of that? How did the real estate go? Well, I mean, we put on homes that were in Lordstown that same week, and they were gone in a day. You know, I'm telling the sellers, hey, we have this huge X factor, which is we don't know what this impact is going to be. And, you know, it's just a nice, really small community. And I think people enjoy that, you know, Lordstown. And as long as you don't speed, I think you're pretty safe around there.
Yeah, that's tough. Route 45 gets a little tough. It's 4 lanes. You're so tempted to go like you're going 70 before you know it, right?
Well, that's 680 here for us too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
55 miles an hour.
Yeah, exactly. So that's something I want to stay tuned in on is any uptick in traffic, and if you're seeing people from, you know, here, this is a wild theory. You know, what do they call that? A wild ass guess, or wild ass theory. And we're allowed to swear on this this isn't a podcast, it's a webinar. But my point is, global pandemic, urban environments and urban populations and the density of people per square mile were hit extremely hard. And so unfortunately, you know, I was in New York City on March 7th, literally right before they shut it down. And I have a lot of friends that live in Brooklyn, in Park Slope, and in Manhattan. And, you know, there we go. Thank you for documenting that, Chet. Is it possible, do you think there could be a movement of population from dense urban environments into communities like Youngstown, given COVID-19, there will be a vaccine, a year from now, this will probably be just a historical artifact. But do you see that maybe our community could benefit potentially from a distribution of population?
I always often wondered why we never did. I mean, with our location in proximity to, waterways and freeways and airports and other cities, Akron, Canton, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, I've always wondered, when we were going to take full advantage of that. Yeah, I don't know that this is ever going to be something and again, this is my opinion in my view, Jeff, but I don't know that we'll ever really see or go back to where we were before this pandemic. And that's not a bad thing. That doesn't mean it's negative. Right. I just don't know that, that things will be conducted and done the way that they have always been done. I think that finally the local farmer is going to get his day or get their day. And again, that's fantastic. And I think that, people are going to rely more on that local, regional, statewide company versus wanting to maybe go outside of the country or your local municipality. And again, I'm not saying that hey, let's buy everything American made, as great as that would be. I mean, we have friends and allies and everyone needs to play well in the sandbox, but
right.
But yeah, I mean, I think that people are going to realize that maybe we're not as safe with this such dense population per capita. And I wouldn't be surprised to see people moving out further or getting into areas like us. So, I was talking to our buddy Tim Petrie, and, prior to the pandemic, he was looking to buy some real estate to put his people in. And now he's operating very successfully remotely.
Remotely, right.
And there may not be that need for him right now to buy an office building because they've adapted and successfully. And if you could do business here or do business in Florida or do business, in the mountains or on a lake or whatever is your pleasure, then I think that's going to help a lot of people out. So, who knows where this is going to go.
Well, it's interesting you say that because just in the past 2 weeks, I've hosted 2 virtual meetings, things that have happened in the past, in person, physically in a room or on a big table, big U-shaped table with a not a slide projector, but a screen and the whole 9 yards, and moved it to more of this virtual experience, right? To the Zoom. And the comments post meeting have been, wow, this was a lot better than, driving half an hour to get there and killing a couple hours of my day. This was even more productive than, say, an in-person meeting would have been. So,
right.
So do you think this bodes, you think the commercial real estate market might be flat, if not down?
I was talking to my buddy Don Thomas over at Platts, and yeah, it halted a little bit in the very beginning parts of the pandemic, but I've been very fortunate to have developed a good relationship with him, and we talk almost on a weekly basis, and it's coming back. I think it's just a matter of people put a quick pause, hit the pause button on it. You know what I mean? And really, I think it was a well-deserved pause button, meaning there's a lot of projects that were going on out there. And I'm sure they were just happy to say, good, we could just focus on finishing up these right now, using the construction workers that we have, using, the money that's here. Let's wrap up this project. And then by the time we're done with this, and I think that's what helps the current uptick that you're seeing is that those projects are getting wrapped up. And so they're starting the other ones. I think it was a well-deserved breath of fresh air. Take a deep breath and let's focus on just one thing instead of trying to do multiples.
Right.
So I don't know that they really took a downturn more than they just hit a well-deserved pause button. Running the marathon, they were running and just never quit. And
right.
So I think again, as with everything now, there's some reading the Business Journal headlines, and there's some great news that's coming out. So again, I think this was an unfortunate thing. Everyone knows that. I'm not making light of it. People died, and the pandemic was there. But I think that there is really going to be some good positive things on the economic side that are going to come out of all this, and just the way that people value personal relationships, right?
Right, right. So we're getting close to the end here. I have two questions left. One question, what are your key takeaways? If you are preparing to sell or thinking of selling, what tips can you offer, someone to deal with selling real estate here in this environment of COVID-19?
Well, again, it's just going to be done a little bit different. The easiest way to talk with with your realtor who knows exactly what to do. But some of those precautions are going to be, again, if you're the seller, let's make sure that everyone is healthy, because people are going to be coming into your property. Yes, they can have 3D tours and virtual tours and those types of things, Jeff. But locally, we're used to reaching out and touching the doors and walking through the properties. And that's how real estate is always going to be done.
Right.
Not saying things won't be done differently, but at the end of the day, you're going to need that realtor to open that door and say, hey, here it is, walk the property, feel if you're at home, and go from there. So, buyers are wearing the masks, they're putting the booties on, or their shoes are being left out on the stoop, the gloves are being worn, hand sanitizers. So, if you happen to show up and you don't have gloves on and you go to touch a door, the realtor's got like the hand wipes and hand sanitizers on their belts. Really, I mean, I really think that the way that everything was handled from all this on our end, and again, I'm speaking for all the agents that have shown my properties, or the agents that have allowed my clients to come in. At the front step, there's booties, there's hand sanitizer, there's Clorox wipes. I think they've all done a really great job in making sure that we maintain safety through this, because we were essential from the very beginning. We were never shut down.
Right.
But I don't think we miss a beat either. I think we're doing a great job. We started doing a great job, and again, this is a professional trade, so I'm not surprised.
Right. No, that's good to know. So it's good to see. It's good to see things reopen, and good to see some activity and movement around the markets. And we'd like to keep tabs on how things are progressing. So obviously, we'll we talk, and we'll keep everyone updated on the trends and momentum here in the market.
The takeaways are: we're still out there, we're still working, we're still doing everything, we're keeping everybody safe. The market's strong. So yeah, just reach out, give us a call. Any realtor out there, we're still working. And so everyone has their connection. If you have real estate questions, reach out to them.
Right. How do we get a hold of you, Chad?
Oh, you can reach the office line, which is always the easy one to remember, 330-629-8888. Or you can call my direct number. It's 330-540-9745. Ask for Dan Dahl. Because hopefully we're all going to be going to the beaches soon.
Yeah, well, I just got news that the swim league is canceled.
I know. I knew it was going to happen. It has to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I appreciate you having me on. I think that people are always nervous about what's happened in the real estate market. The good thing is that we're still really strong.
Strong, stable. It's an important part of our economy, so that's good to know.
Huge part. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right. Thanks for joining us today, Chad. Appreciate it.
Yep. Good seeing you.
You too.